pausing it.
92.1 WFOV.
You're live.
Our Voices Radio, yours and mine. Taking a pause from people. Well, let me put it this way. Taking a pause as we push people who make a difference. Here inside the Jazz Jacuzzi, heard Saturdays, 3 p.m. through 8 p.m. Come on in. The music's just fine. I have with me a celebrity in his own right. Up for re-election in the 1st Ward. He really needs no introduction. Councilman Eric Mays.
Man, I'm glad to be here in the Jazz Jacuzzi, Dr. Lee Bell.
Well, glad to have you.
Man, the water is warm.
It's fine.
And even though that's a metaphor, glad to be here.
All right. We have some questions for you as you seek office again in the 1st Ward. What are your boundaries?
On the east side, North Saginaw Street. On the west side, a portion of it is Clio Road. So from Saginaw to Clio Road, Carpenter Road between Saginaw and Clio is the northern boundary. So I go, if you start at Stewart Street and go down Saginaw to Carpenter Road, turn left on Carpenter, go to Clio Road to Pearson Road. When you get to DuPont, make a right, go to Baltimore, down to Martin Luther King, back to Stewart. All of that section, you got Marengo, Philadelphia, Bishop, you got Pulaski, you got Sally Court, Holmes Street, Marlowe, Marja, Edwin, Baldwin, Russell, Laredo, Piper, Bundy, so forth and so on. Carpenter Road, that's the area. The farthest point north before you cross over to Mount Morris Township.
Okay. As we think about Councilman Eric Mays, you have a couple of wards or a couple of missteps. So let's just get that out of the way right now.
Well, it could be more than a couple, but let me zero in on the couple I think you're referring to, and we can mix in some of the rest. When you refer to a couple of missteps, 2 weeks or so after I was elected, I was invited to a so-called victory party. And even though I represented myself, I was sincere when I did that because I wanted to prove to people that everything they was reading and hearing wasn't true. I always joke and laugh and say it was not 4 flats, it was only 3. But I also alleged in the trial that somebody cut those tires. I also alleged that somebody handed me a drink and it might have been something in it. I don't know to this day. But whenever you're at such a low level of alcohol, because I don't really drink, you should remember everything. And so if you don't remember everything and you're at a .08, that makes me think it could have been some hanky-panky. We don't know whether it was or not, but I know when the breathalyzer expert testified, she said that if you have gum, jawbreaker, or false teeth or dentures, it could make the liquid caught up under the dentures go up or down .03. So what I did, because they did not have me remove my dentures when they did the breathalyzer, I cross-examined her on that and said, is it possible I was a .79 or .77 and would have been okay? She said if you had dentures, so I pulled out my teeth. Even in the closing arguments, I said if the teeth fit, you must acquit. I did get a not guilty for DUI. You don't have to have a breathalyzer for impaired, so, the jury gave me all not guilties on everything. No possession of marijuana, it never was none. not guilty on a DUI, not guilty for not giving fingerprints. I gave fingerprints, and not guilty for not reporting an accident. There was no accident. And so I ended up doing 28 days for my first real traffic ticket in 40 years of driving for impaired. The second misstep that I believe that you're referring to would be something that I described like a 16-year-old. If a 16-year-old goes in a liquor store and say, give me a fifth of Bacardi or Hennessy, the liquor store owner should say no. I don't hide. I don't try to do nothing funny. So when I went in a pawn shop as a council person with a laptop that's city issued, it's illegal for a pawn shop to take in a city, well, any city-owned or school property, which they knew it was in this case. They should have said no, and you wouldn't have read about that second misstep. So I say I must crack down on pawn shops if they want to take in illegal stuff. And it's hard to say stolen, but this stuff here was out in the open, and so we cut a deal, and I'll see if in the future I crack down on pawn shops. So those are the two missteps that you're referring to?
Yes, sir.
We can go farther back. When I was in my 20s and younger, I've had other convictions. Like in 2017, if you carry a gun, you can open carry. You also can get a permit to carry easily. But when some folks broke in my house in between college and law school, I bought my first gun. And even though we convicted them in a jury trial, they kept coming, and it made me nervous. I carried a gun, and I caught a felony gun charge. And so that's why I didn't go to law school. I had already passed the law school admission test, but in between college and law school, some folks tried to act a fool, and I kind of responded, protected myself, took a plea deal, and then ended up working for General Motors for 31 years rather than being a lawyer. And there's others, but that's how I am. I'm going to be open and honest, and people can say what they want, but the truth never hurt nobody.
Let's go back to the pawn shop issue.
Why? I don't want to keep talking. No, I'm just kidding. Go ahead.
No, my question is, was the pawn shop owner charged?
No, nothing has been said or done. In council meeting, I asked that the law be brought up. I still might ask in the middle of this election because that's kind of puzzling to me. Had that guy said, Councilman Mays, we can't take that in because I don't use my laptop. And I had went in my office once, the door was open once or twice, and I felt it was safer there in their vault. And, you know, the way their rules work, you couldn't lose it. That could have been a problem. So the way their rules work, you'd have to take it out, put it back in the same day, take it out, put it back in the same day. Then later on, because they had been in there a year more, they changed the rules. You could just pay the $12 interest or whatever. So people try to make a big deal about pound it 6, 7, 9 times. That was all one pretty much incident, and that's where I was storing it at. I've tried to turn it back into the city 2 or 3 times, and they wouldn't take it. And so I still want it turned in. I don't use it.
Exciting things are happening for your ward. There's groundbreaking on a new supermarket. What does that mean for the residents of your ward?
Well, first of all, with the cooperation from Commissioner Nolden, we call him BB, and with, the land bank and the city, we was able to first get Sussex Apartments tore down. I call it Sussex, but it was renamed Glen Acres. That was a $1.2 million major demolition on Pearson Road at that corner. Now you're referring to another major demolition across the street where Pastor Flint, the land bank, the city, as we've all been involved. And so they've now removed those buildings, the car wash, the oil change place, and the building where DHS used to sit. And that will be the home of the new community-owned supermarket. When I say community-owned, that means it's a goal of about 1,500 people who hopefully will be owners and shoppers there. They pay about $250 as an individual to have ownership, and they can pay it like $25 here, $25 there, till they get up to $250. And businesses and churches and organizations can get ownership for about $500. And so we want to see, I think it's about 500 and so owners who have paid in. We got to do another 500, 1,000. And as people have seen bulldozers and this thing really coming into reality, they starting to join. And so we encourage people. And I've enjoyed working with Pastor Flint, who is now the new moderator of the Great Lakes District Baptist Association. That's a conglomerate of about 60 Baptist churches in the city of Flint. And, he succeeds Pastor Randolph, who had been moderator for years. And so it's a lot of good pastors in the Great Lakes District. Pastor Stewart, one of my favorites at House of Prayer, Pastor Fuller at Mount Calvary, my pastor, Pastor Moore at Shiloh Missionary Baptist Church. My dad used to be the pastor before we was blessed with Pastor Moore. And all the way from Metropolitan, Pastor Miller, Upper Room, in the First Ward, Pastor Bradford, Pastor Archie Powell, who was my cousin, at First Union. We have prayed for his speedy recovery. He's been sick. And so when you look at all of the different pastors involved in the Great Lakes District, when Pastor Flynn won that election, I was, glad for him.
For someone who has not been paying attention, how can they buy into the supermarket? Is there a place to go?
Yeah, I think on the third or fourth Monday of it's probably the fourth Monday of each month, they meet at Eagle's Nest Academy, which is on the other side of Pearson Road, across from the location of the grocery store where we're doing the demolition. And that's located on that side of Pearson Road in the Second Ward. And so Eagle's Nest Academy, about 6 o'clock on the fourth Monday of each month, is where they have the grocery store meetings. People can buy in. They also can call Foss Avenue Baptist Church on any day and get information and buy in. I think that number is 787-9019. But if that's not the number, but I think it is, you can call it now and check it, but 787-9019. Or I know this number is correct and I can help you. My cell number is 810-922-4860. Just don't call me right now. I'm on the air. I'd have to text you and say call you back. But I usually try to answer my phone, and I do a lot of three-way calls to try to help people out. 810-922-4860. Councilman Mays.
Your ward is experiencing...
Our ward.
Okay.
Our ward. I can't claim it. I'm going to call it our ward.
Okay. Our ward is experiencing blemishes, setbacks, like most of the nation. For people who are residents there long and short term, what hopeful word do you have for them?
Well, our ward is probably about 92, 93, 94, 90% black populated, African-American black, whatever you want to say. It's a predominantly black North End ward. And, last year in 2016, because the city of Flint used to contract and or tear down houses. Since people have moved out of Flint, at one point we were prospering. We had 80,000 GM UAW workers. Now they tell me we're down to about 8,000. So that means we lost 72,000 paychecks that used to come in on a Thursday or Friday. When you got a city this small with 80,000 paychecks dropping regularly, Dr. Leeville, we used to have James Brown come into Flint, the Jackson 5, the Ohio players. We was a hub for entertainment because people knew that the economy was jumping. Yeah. We had the highest income per capita at one time, they say, than any city this size in the nation. People came up here from Louisiana, Arkansas. My mother and them came from Mississippi, Alabama. People was getting jobs. That's why I don't look so bad at the younger people in our ward and around the city, because the opportunity ain't the same. We used to could put in an application. When I put mine in on a Monday, Wednesday, I was working in the plant. Mm-hmm. Things has changed. So we've got some challenges. Last year, the land bank tore down about 147 houses in our ward. And if one of them was next door to you, you were glad. Mm-hmm. And some of those people, I would go out on site while they was tearing it down, and they was glad. They would say thank you. And so this year and next year, 2017-18, we're looking at about 200 houses or so in our ward that should come down. Some of the streets that I know where you got 8 and 12 on a block in a street, Marengo, East Marengo, I always highlight that. You got them up on Alma, Laredo, Ruth, all down in there between Saginaw and Martin Luther King. And then even on the west side of some of them streets, West Bundy, West Foss, there's some things that need to be cleared out. I had a house on Fleming Road that they tore down, and the guy wanted to buy it. He was going to fix it up. So we know everything that they're tearing down for whatever reason shouldn't be torn down. Mm-hmm. Some of them can be rehabilitated. But we had to block a master plan type deal on the zoning where they wanted to turn the first ward into green space. And we said, no, that means they was trying to change the law that said you couldn't build a new home. Well, I believe you can build a new home. If you got 3 or 4 properties in the first ward lots, and you want to put a nice ranch-style house with a basement, I believe that you should be able to build that and put that. I'd like to see new houses come into the ward bigger and better, and just over the time change the look of the area which I represent. So that's the position I've taken, and I'll continue to block stuff that's not progressive. Also, in the first ward, we had some bright spots. We got DuPont paved from Carpenter Road to Bishop, and you can see the new DuPont with sidewalks and driveways done, a couple glitches, because some of them say my driveway was bigger before they did that, now it's small. I say, well, we can talk about that. But I want to do the same thing with Fleming Road between Bear Creek and Pearson. It's a little rough in there, and it need to be done like DuPont. We also had some things happen in the first ward that I'm proud of. People better listen close, because we had the first black president of the United States come into the first ward. I seen the United States Air Force One fly over Northwestern. Some people say because they got all that technology and radar, they flew low over Northwestern, landed at Bishop Airport, and then traveled in that big black limousine, the Beast, to Northwestern High School located in the first ward. Last year, I had somebody I went to school with, after President Obama had been there, my old schoolmate. We stayed in the dorm, Michigan State. Magic Johnson was there, and he'll be back again November the 18th. I just got a call from his brother Larry, and I got to get my list together for volunteers. So for November the 18th, if you want to volunteer with me and Magic, then we'll be back at Northwestern doing some good.
Put myself and Miss Barbie both on that list.
Good. I'm filling my list up. So I will put you on there, Dr. Lee Bell. And so I'm glad to be in touch with Magic. I was telling Larry, I said, that was good what happened in the first ward up at Northwestern's track, because they redid the track, with about 100,000 of the 250,000 he donated, because he got some of the contracts to do the food at the various Flint schools. Also in the first ward, I was glad to win a fight. We still fighting. I had to try to keep Hasselbrink open because they had some things with the board up there, and the emergency manager. Under the emergency managers, they set up a board of directors versus how the city used to have an employee up there. And so there was some challenges there, and there still is. But the doors of Hasselbrinkton stayed open, and we'll continue to do repairs and keep that going. And we put a playground up there. And so you can see kids playing now, ain't been able to play on swings and stuff. And it's not much, but it looks good at Hasselbrink basketball. We want to put picnic tables, barbecue pits, so we working. But anyway, go ahead, because the list is long on some things that we're proud of versus things that we need to continue to do.
As we sit here and talk, I am not recognizing the first ward that you talk about and the first ward that is depicted in the media, print, and TV.
Well, sometimes, Dr. Lee Bell, I don't recognize myself as the council person that they talk about and depict on TV and in the news and even on Facebook. We've got some characters and some people on Facebook that all day long, the saying goes, controversy sells newspapers. But when I was a committee person out at Flint Truck and Bus, and if you know the history of Flint, the sit-down strikes, we always had to fight. I had to argue with 5 or 6 council people and Mayor Walling when I was getting information from Melissa Mays, Leanne Walters had come to my house, Aaron Brockovich had sent in Robert Bocock. When we was fussing and arguing saying brown water ain't normal and there's something wrong with the water, and then we learned about tests in water for lead, and we learned about the federal lead copper rule, and we was gathering information. We were depicted as wild and radical, and people didn't know what we was talking about. Tony Palladino with a long white beard howling in meetings. So we was depicted a certain way. But then when Mark Edwards from Virginia Tech and Dr. Mona Atisha Hanna spoke up from Hurley, even they had to fight a little bit, but it became credible. Walling, the council, and folks I argued with, because I was one of the first elected officials out there in the middle of the activists and the people fighting, they wouldn't declare emergency. When Pastor Overton and the concerned pastors with Pastor Harris told me to test it out and put a motion on the floor on council to see if we could go back to Detroit, it took them months later to go back. Wally and them was saying the water was safe. Kincaid and them and Josh Friedman and others was telling me to shut up in council meetings. You couldn't discuss nothing longer than 5 minutes. And I'm the voice of the first ward. I'm just as much a council person as them. And so I have to fight, and I have to be depicted a certain way as I fight for the people on certain issues. So then we made a major breakthrough. Once we won the mayor's seat and we talked behind the scenes, the mayor declared an emergency. and only the mayor could declare it. Walling and that crowd wouldn't do it. She did it. The strategy worked. It was a political strategy to declare an emergency, even when the power had went out 2 years or so early, and we went all that Christmas break with no power in the first ward in the north side. Walling didn't declare an emergency. That's where I first learned 2 years earlier, before the water crisis, that only a mayor, if they have the political will can declare an emergency. That declaration of emergency, in my opinion, forced people to pay attention more so than they had. And it also opened up the pocketbooks of federal and state government. We've had about 400 million or more come in. President Obama, on his way out, signed for $170 million. $50 million of that went to the registry for lead at Hurley Hospital. $120 million came to us for pipe replacement and/or infrastructure and/or repairs to the water plant. To date, we spent only $40 million of that $120 million, and that's where you got companies like Goyette, W.T. Stevens, and them replacing about 6,000 pipes. Me, I wanted to spend the whole $120 million at one time and have about 20 contractors replacing all the pipes and get it over with, but that didn't happen. And so $80 million is still on hold as we debate the 30-year contract with Great Lakes Water Authority. I happen to sit on the KWA board and the city council, and contrary to popular belief, I've already cast a no vote, unlike some of my colleagues on the council, as it relates to the 30-year deal. I support the mayor's deal because she put a heck of a deal together. I almost said a hell of a deal, but she put a heck of a deal together. And I did come back and say a hell of a deal. But I'd had a problem with Great Lakes and the state putting the deal together with her, where Great Lakes pay off the bond of the KWA. I mean, we got a $7 million a year bond payment. It totals $196 million, and I believe the state should be responsible for that, and we should hold on to that new pipeline for our kids and grandkids. And I told the mayor, I say, well, you done brought us a good deal, but now let's see if we can get the council and the people behind you to tweak it. And we ain't been able to do that. You got council people refusing to meet, discuss the details, fighting with the mayor. You see Warren now, he done showed his true colors. He want to be the mayor. Mm-hmm. And I'm telling you, when you understand the dynamics of the politics, you got activists who was in the water crisis under our leadership and fighting, and they were productive too. You got them split up all over everywhere now. You got people claiming they the man, claiming they the woman, want to be on TV, doing recall petitions. There's no way, if you didn't recall Walling them or talk about it, or you didn't go after none of these others, you can't go after the first African-American female mayor who then spoke at the Democratic National Convention, brought in the Democratic debate in the middle of a national president's election to the white, and poured in over $400 million on the water crisis, had people like Snoop Dogg, Beyonce, what's his name, Bruno Mars, is that his name, sending money in, and people think that money came right to the checking account of the city. That $400 million went to United Way, Red Cross, $4 million or more for distributing water. The Community Foundation took in the $32 million from the celebrities and Beyonce, and you can go and get the paperwork and count money and see where it went. Ain't nothing funny or suspicious with the books of the city or the county or the Red Cross or the United Way or Hurley Hospital or the Community Foundation. But you got a lot of folks talking, and for those who ain't in the meetings and don't know the facts, they just at the street. They in the street, they're in the grocery store, they're in the churches, and you got some folks who come to 1 or 2 council meetings out running around telling them stuff, and they seem to believe it and rumors spread. So believe me, sir, I'm going to try my best to set the record straight, get people to vote right. And some of my colleagues on the council who've been running with the wrong folks, I'm going to name them, and I'm going to ask that they be set down and we get some new people, because I want to kind of try to be the president. I want to show people that when you come to council meeting, we'll talk to you and treat you right. Sir, ma'am, how can I help you? What are you doing? When you come to that mic, I want my colleagues to be able to talk and discuss. And I don't care about long meetings. We got a city to run.
I just got a question in my headset here. And the question is, from a viewer, are you an angry black man?
I am somewhat of an angry black man, but for good reason. I'm angry that President Trump would look at somebody doing peaceful protests and call him a son of a bitch. That angers me. I'm angry that I can know the rules in council and say point of order, point of information, and next thing you know, I'm being took out in handcuffs. And I had to sue. And I could have probably got $40,000, but I just went on and settled for $4,500 to make a point to Kerry Nelson, Scott Kincaid, and Kate Fields and them. You're not going to do the first ward or no other ward like that. We are voted in just like you. We understand Robert's Rules of Order. You don't. Because under Robert's Rules of Order, when you say point of order, point of information, it's a reason stuff should stop. You shouldn't be arrested and removed from your seat in handcuffs. I heard him say, well, you told him to put the handcuffs on you. I'll say the only way I'll give up my elected seat is if you cuff me. Somebody, and then he chose to cuff me, and they had ordered me walked out. I fixed that. I'm angry in the sense of you shouldn't have to fight for months when the water is brown. People dying of legionnaires. The governor sitting on a $1 billion surplus. Our budget in the city, $53 million or so, general fund budget. They budget, general fund, $55 billion. And you got rich folks who can dump $1 billion in here, and we arguing for $100 million on something they broke. So yes, I'm kind of angry because you got white folks and black folks, rather than uniting and coming together, they trying to pick at your flaws and lie on you. Some of them are outright lie. So yes, in 2017, I'm a calculated, smart, intelligent, political, angry black man that's getting things done.
2 more questions for you.
I'm still on the angry black man. You know, I know how to fix it when people try to say stuff. But, you know, sometimes they want you to deny it. I use a different approach. I'll go along with it and then qualify it. I'm a graduate of Michigan State, political science pre-law. I'm intelligent. I'm smart. I'm articulate. But, yeah, if they want to say that, let's just keep going with it, Dr. Lee Bell.
If I would compare your ward, the 1st ward, with the 4th ward, I believe there are a lot of similarities in the housing stock, in the health of the residents, in problems in both wards. So I would sort of think naturally that you and the 4th Ward council person would sort of be working in unison together because you have so many similarities in your ward. But that's not happening.
Well, I don't know all the 4th Ward. I do know the 1st Ward. And when you get over there on Sally Court, parts of Barbara Drive, Lillian, Bell Creek, Park Belt, Colonial, Orange Lane. That's a beautiful neighborhood. I don't know of Fourth Ward neighborhoods and what is their beautiful parts. When you get over by Marlow, Marger, Griggs, parts of Oxley, all over in there. That's a beautiful part of a neighborhood. It ain't bad in parts of Baldwin, Edwin, Edwards, And so, don't get me wrong. Some of the houses in the stock ain't bad over on Home Street. It ain't bad over on my neighbor on Russell. Gemini, nice house. Everything's cool. And you can go down on Ruth, Foss, even on Marengo, Philadelphia, whatever. When you go inside of some of our houses and you see the flat screen TVs, the pretty carpet, you in a house on the north side that's bought and paid for. Do you know a 22-year-old can get a 3-bedroom house for $3,000 from the land bank at 22 years old, have it bought and paid for by only paying about $150 a month on a land contract for a total price of $3,000? That's better than Atlanta, New York, whatever. So I don't know what the Fourth Ward look like, but I know the councilman in the First Ward is different from the councilwoman in the Fourth Ward, Kate Fields. I know that I'm kind of going to fight for black folks. And I will fight for white folks. Leanne Walters and them from some of them wards was in my house. Melissa Mays, in the water crisis, we called each other kinfolks because of the last name Mays. But she seemed to be looking at black folks, or me in particular, and others that I watch in a different light. I don't like to call people thinking they better or smarter, but she sends an era of differentness. And even when I looked at Mr. Newsom, the Harvard grad, she put the motion on the floor not to vote for this finance director as we get ready to go into year-end budgets and audits. We need somebody there, and we needed them there yesterday. So I can't speak on the inside of the houses in the Fourth Ward. I can't speak on the areas that compare. I'm familiar with some of the Fourth Ward, but not all of it. But I'm intimately familiar with the First Ward. But the difference between the two council personalities, I've seen her state rules that really wasn't the rules. I've seen her try to use point of orders or point of information that really wasn't accurate. I've seen her try to be intelligent and compete with me on certain levels and just be plain nasty. Do you know I was on the elevator once and got off, and next thing I know, I found a complaint in the legal department like I had tried to do something for that old stereotype of a black man in an elevator with a white woman. I don't bite my tongue. Kate Fields is not honest. She's nasty. She's kind of disruptive, and it appalls me that Kerry Nelson, Scott Kincaid, Jackie Poplar, and Juan Tewez and them kind of buy into that, some of it, because they put her on committees. She's the chair of the legislative committee, but I think she teaches at U of M, and she ain't never there to chair the committee. And so that council has to be fixed. For years, we was never the majority on the council. Now we got 6 blacks, 2 whites, and 1 Hispanic. But the Hispanic is gone. But why would the president put the Kincaid and Fields on the most important committees and just let us sit there idle like we ain't got sense? So I don't know. I know some similarities between the 1st and 4th Ward. You got some demolitions that need to be done in the 1st Ward in certain areas. You got black folks in the 4th Ward. You got some white folks. You got people like me in both wards that's a little poor and, moderate income. But I think we're the same. I think the people is the same. I think some of the housing issues the same, but the personalities of the two council people are different.
Why Eric Mays?
That's what get me in trouble. Government ain't a short answer, but I'll tell you, I'll try to be obedient. If you don't vote, you don't count. In the plant, I won a committee person election by 1 vote. I won this council seat by 7 votes. We know folks done died, black folks been back in the South, couldn't vote, women couldn't vote, blood been shed. It's just the way the government works. Why not vote and get folk in there who gon' represent you? We in a position to create jobs. We got Lear coming over where Buick used to be. If we really get the right people in there, I done argued for 3 years that we need to fire back up the Department of Economic Development. We should have manufacturing plants where Buick and AC used to be. 10 years ago, I told them we should have had a bottled water plant, and I had people panning on me and laughing. Now they say, Mays, you talked about that bottled water 10 years ago. We should be owning stuff, not only grocery stores, but plants. Young people should be millionaires in Flint. I like to see somebody own a plant, own a store, own even just a little corner liquor store. They making $200,000-300,000 a year. You don't have to just be in the NBA or the NFL to make $5-10 million. You can make $1 billion if you own a manufacturing plant. We got the best manufacturing land if we force GM to do a little cleanup in the country. And so people need to vote, because if you get the right politician in like me and 4 more people who think like me, we can change law, we can do economic development projects that can affect the pocketbook of you, your kids, and your grandkids in this small town for generations to come. Voting can, affect your pocketbook. I just changed the law where they can't go back 3 years now and bill you for water at the highest price in the country because your meter was broke. I changed it where they can only go back 3 to 6 months if it's the city's fault. And there's some things in there they better do before they go back. So that was my first change of law. I also changed the shall to may, where they can't put the lien on your house no more for your water bill, property tax. And that's what council don't do. Some of them just think they have to go to meetings, fuss and argue. They don't know we can rewrite law and we can direct money, millions of dollars, to projects. They doing stuff downtown, and we got to do stuff all around town. Tax breaks. They want to build a $31 million hotel. $31 million or so to do the Capitol Theater. I'm trying to show them that in the first ward, we can get tax breaks for grocery stores. We can own stuff as first ward residents. And if I continue to do that, other council people and other people will look at it and catch on.
When is the general election?
The general election is November the 7th. The polls will be open from 7 in the morning to 8 at night. But I can assure you, because people getting ballots in the mail, people are voting today. People will be voting early, absentee, from today all the way up until election day.
And if you're not a registered voter, when is the deadline to get
The
registered?
deadline to get registered is October the 10th. The law say 30 days before the November 7th election, so the date I'm hearing is October the 10th. But people can go down to City Hall, vote across the counter. They can line up. If it's only 2 or 3 there, you in and out in a minute. People can fill out an application, and the ballot will come in the mail. I would love to see about 5,000 or 6,000 people vote early like they did when President Obama ran for office. And I want to see young folks with saggy pants and backward hats and all of that coming in the polls at Hasselbrink, Brennan. I want to see them at Gundry, because I've seen them and talked to them in the lines when President Obama ran. If they want to sag their pants, they can sag them right to the polls. I want them backward hats coming in, and they telling me, Mays, we gonna vote. I say, okay, we'll see.
All right, wrap it up.
Well, thank you, First Ward Councilman Eric Mays.
Well, thank you, Dr. Lee Bell, and I apologize because ain't nothing I can do quick. Well, it is. I just ain't gonna say right.
Ladies and gentlemen, you've been listening to Flint City Councilman First Ward Eric Mays. Remember to get out and exercise your civic duty. It's your responsibility. Not only do we have a right to vote, but a responsibility as we push the positive and people who make a difference inside the Jazz Jacuzzi here at 92.1 WFOV.
Dude, I think your stuff was running the whole time. I don't know where you are.
What, the phone?
The phone. Yeah.
No, I just started it back.
Did you? Okay.
Yeah.